Let's talk about content creation. So you might notice that very often I do a set of 3 videos and I tend to wear the same clothing. Now I could be wearing a different shirt, but ultimately the camera perspective is probably the same. And that's because I use a content development methodology that actually focuses on creating content rather than having perfect content. The key of what I'm doing here is that I'm producing materials on a theme and then ultimately bundling them up in order to create long form content, but each piece is some kind of short form content. So let me just explain why this is useful, because if you're spending all your time making content, then you don't likely have clients. I'm Justin Hitt from Ad Briefing's Copywriting Tips. We're going to talk about how I'm able to create more content than I can publish, and that I create content that's focused to specific buyers. So ultimately, somebody's usually asked a question, or I've had received series of questions in the past, and that's how I make the content. I'm answering common questions. Now, are there topics and subjects that I know more about that we can do in a consultation or a coaching environment? Yes, but how would the audience know the topic areas that I can help them with, or the areas that I can help them with? See, a lot of folks come to me and they say, look, I have problems creating content. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do. I create content haphazardly, and then I can see in the stats that the audience comes and goes. My answer to those people is to follow a method like I have today. So first off, I've talked about in past episodes about tracking numbers. You'll very often see a tracking number in my content that is especially in the UTM codes for Google Analytics. If you're not sure what that is, the UTM code in Google Analytics helps me know that when you click on a link in the podcast description, whether in syndication or on YouTube or on Rumble, those links are uniquely coded so that I know where that traffic came from. The coding link you'll see has 3 digits, so 001, a hyphen, and then what we call a campaign code, which would be an alphanumeric code that tells me what campaign it's with. You'll notice that those have 3 digits. That means I can only produce 999 pieces of content associated with one catalog number in order to keep my source code unique. Now again, if you don't understand what I'm talking about, I go into depth in my analytics programs, but it's very useful to know where your leads come from. It's called lead attribution, and where your sales come from. And if you're using Google Analytics, you're going to use these small source and medium codes in order to know where things came from. So in my coding, I actually have a consistent tracking from the code I use on the website all the way back to the piece of content I have in my content library. And I do the same thing with clients. But I've intentionally built in a flaw to the system. So I have catalog codes. I can only create 999 pieces of content per each element. Now you might be saying, well, Justin, 999 pieces of content is a lot of content. And yes, it is a lot of content. I have not created that much content. But what I want to share with you today is a methodology that will help you create vast amounts of content, high quality content, useful content. However, content creation doesn't pay the bills. Content creation generates leads. Content creation keeps me in front of audiences so that we can build rapport. And then content creation also helps that audience become more comfortable with me as a unique individual, helping them solve problems. The way I'm able to create large amounts of content is not some magic artificial intelligence prompt. It's not some magic secret to article writing. It is essentially formulas and the desires and needs of the audience. So I talk a lot about customer research. I want you to research your customers so much that you know everything that keeps them up at night. You know what types of breakfast they eat, what kind of vehicles they drive. You know so much about that audience that you can speak with them in a relevant and tangible way. This particular channel that I have speaks to copywriters and marketers. The majority of my subscribers, especially early in their engagement with me, are freelance copywriters that are tired of getting the paying trading dollars for hours or hours for dollars. They're tired of getting beat down on commodity pricing. They're tired of and frustrated with having the 99-cent press release attitude that many of the clients have. As they progress through the newsletter, and they've been with me for maybe a year or so, they start moving to the understanding that there are certain things that they're valued for in the marketplace, and that when they niche focus on an audience rather than on a customer, so they become experts in an audience, they can serve a broader range of people who want to reach the same audience, and they can get better results. And so you start learning how to write sales letters, write campaigns rather than just single pieces, and then you're no longer trading, words on a page for cents or hours for dollars. You're actually doing project work. As they progress, and this might be you progress, you start thinking about maybe having an agency by hiring copywriters, by hiring researchers, by hiring an administrative assistant. And while you may only have 2 or 3 people in the office or even virtual workers, you now have $1 million agency with consistent residual and active income every month. So you're no longer chasing people. You don't have roller coaster income. You have steps that progress what you're doing. Now, with that said, I can serve customers within any one of those 3 segments. So there's an initial customer audience segment of freelance copywriters. There's a mid customer segment of copywriters that are starting to do larger project work. And then finally, copywriters that are syndicating their skills and activities, automating their marketing, and building an agency. So anybody who serves that same audience, I have expert level knowledge of those audiences. And that means that I have libraries of headlines. I have libraries of common sales objections. I have libraries of demographic information. And all of this is in my content library. So if you've seen my Obsidian content library, and I have a video about my migration from Word documents and 23 years of content into a single library, that library is contextually developed so that I can use search tools and I can use artificial intelligence to find core concepts. And so I end up mapping every one of those stages. And this is very instructive. Pay close attention because you can do this with a golf industry. You can do this with a chiropractor. You can do this with a dentist. So a chiropractor, dentist, and general practitioner all have the same customer, okay, because they work on different parts of the body. And so if you're an expert in that customer and the life cycle of that customer, you can build a library and then you could use it with these different customers. So where do I get the ideas and concepts necessary to do podcasts or to do video content off the top of my head based on an outline or formula? Well, again, I've researched these people for nearly 20 years, and in the case of copywriters, you're not my only audience, but I can deliver to you what is useful, what is valuable. So when you have this library, you're going to start extracting from the library both an editorial calendar and an editorial topics list. The editorial calendar is the content that you've committed on, and it's framed around your marketing campaigns. What? You don't have any marketing campaigns? Well, you'll be more successful if you have campaigns and sprints that are tied to specific with product offers. So in the case of this newsletter, my products and sprints are the coaching program, which I don't go talk about specifically because I usually bridge that with a paid consultation. Meaning, you're going to ask questions about the materials that I deliver, usually implementation specific questions, and then I will deliver to you an answer as well as an offer for you to join the coaching program or to do a paid consultation or a larger consultation, or maybe even bring my team in to support you, help you write the proposal, help you bid on a larger project, and then ultimately do that project so that you can get paid without having a big team. So here's the deal. Because I understand these things, I can have an ongoing conversation with my prospects. So I can set up a camera. I can sit down and record 3 to 4 audio segments of 15 minutes each. I can do this once a week. I could do this in a one-to-one conversation with somebody. I could do this just talking to my computer. And now I have visual and audio content. Now I personally prefer to just work with my phone or to work with my computer and do the audio content because, I can just show up and do that. I can use the pattern of my voice in order to communicate these things without having to, make sure my hair is all sexy and my beard is just perfect. But again, video does offer a little bit of character. But I'm not winging these things. I'm not coming up here and just saying, well, what am I going to do today? I have an idea from my topics list, my editorial topics, what needs to move onto the calendar because I have a certain promotion going on. Now, I have a good list of private clients, so I'm not really punching out hard promotions. Now, I probably should, because a hard promotion where maybe every quarter you have an enrollment into the coaching program, that actually is more consistent. I will admit to you there are times where I am not as consistent as I need to get new clients because I have a lifestyle business where I'm focusing on the core newsletter and then a handful of private clients. I also don't serve just the copywriter business. I use the same skill set in other audiences, and really what I'm trying to get you guys to do is to go from almost starvation. A lot of freelancers are just waiting, they're just begging for the next deal. I want to get you to consistent, not only active income, but passive income, and then get you into the top 10% of earners in your area. So you'll be producing $15,000 to $20,000 a month in your pocket, net proceeds of a business, and that's where $1 million agency would be. If you're grossing $1 million in an agency, you're going to pocket probably $10,000 a month pretty easily, and that $10,000 a month is going to be kind of your salary. So a lot of my folks that are in that first category are also employees, and they want to be independent. But again, I'm building audience persona by audience category. I know where most of my audience is when they start out. I know where most of my audience wants to be when they're done. As long as I'm creating content that speaks to where you are today and where you want to go, and then provides a series of steps, I can use a variety of very reliable formulas. I can use the AIDA formula: attention, interest, desire, action. I can use Gary Halbert's STAR, story, solution. I just fit what I know about a topic into a pattern for a specific audience. Now, again, like I said before, I end up creating more content than I can publish. So what else do I do? Now, the reason I'm sharing this with you here today is because I do hear folks say, besides not knowing what to talk about, but they also say that they don't know how to produce reports. In my book, Establish Instant Credibility, I talk about a way to create artifacts that demonstrate and prove your expertise and value in the marketplace. And so that might be standing in front of an audience and doing an hour-long presentation, and then at the end offering them an opportunity to work with you directly. It might be a webinar. It might be a book. It might be a report. And so people will say, I don't have the time to write a book, because they have the misconception a book takes years to write. Well, if you have the editorial topics, and you have the editorial calendar, and you have a library of past materials you've created that are all grouped around what they're calling today content hubs. I was around before there was article marketing, but content hubs are the catalog. So it's a cluster of related topics. Now, an article could be related to more than one topic. Like I just wrote an article about what happens to your debt under inflation, and that is related to debt reduction, but it's also related to overcoming inflation or inflation busting. But again, now you have a library of content and a bunch of topics. If you build outlines, your books will come together on their own. Your reports will come together on your own. So it's just like writing a sales letter for a client. You don't just start at the beginning and write to the end. You're going to build headlines. You're going to build responses to objections. You're going to build fascinations. You're going to build customer testimonials, and then you're going to assemble. I don't remember who said it, but they said great copy is assembled, not written. And so I use the same concept in my content marketing. So if I sit down and I do 3 videos on the theme, today the theme is authenticity. If I do 3 videos on the theme of authenticity, and I do 1 video for one channel, and 1 video for another channel, and 1 video for the channel that you're watching right now, I can put them all together, have them transcribed, I can turn it into a course, and then that's a single topic set. I'm getting multiple uses out of the content, and so I can do things like set up a little camera over here. There's not a camera, there's a a light shining on the wall to make the room a little brighter. But as long as I do the basics, I've got valuable and useful content. Now, if I end up with a backlog of content, that's okay. I publish what's relevant to my editorial calendar and the campaigns that are going on. The other things can be recalled later and published. I had a problem, for example, that I did probably almost 100 episodes of a podcast. This is probably 2005 through 2007, maybe. And then I migrated off that hosting platform, and there was a problem migrating. So I have this giant library of audio on my hard disk that is no longer available online. Because what I would do is I'd answer subscribers' questions. I think I had like 15,000 subscribers or something like that. But I'd answer subscribers' questions, and then I would publish it on the podcast, and then I would send an email link to the individual who asked the question, and then I would move them further along in an engagement to a paid consultation or to a project. And then that content was out there for my general list. But I changed platforms, and now it's not available anymore. So all those links are broken. I've since taken those messages out of my autoresponders, and now that content's available to recycle. So the last point I want to give you is that if you have a system for developing ideas and concepts around a specific audience, if every piece of content offers the opportunity for someone to ask questions or share their experience, you're going to start building this giant library of topics. If you follow the things that we do for writing sales letters, you're going to have a pile of headlines. You're going to have a pile of common objections and frustrations. All of this stuff mapped into the customer experience, where the customer is today, an intermediary area, and then where they want to go. Now you've got structure to this content. If you then organize the content around topics, and then in each of those topics build an outline, now you have courses, products, reports, other artifacts that demonstrate your credibility. And by the way, these all build on my profit formulas that I've shared years ago, but are still applicable today. The beginning, middle, and end concept is where the customer is, where they want to be, and how do they get there. The outlining and clustering of topics is what we call in a natural language processing or a topic clustering, where we are now able to test the topics. So Ad Briefing's copywriting tips is actually a copywriting and marketing and communications related cluster, where Inside Strategic Relations, which is another one of my newsletters, which is a persuasion and social influence cluster, and then Prosperity Homestead, which is my environmental side, a little more play there, is my application of these two, communications and influence, into lifestyle. And so it's all the same audience. Everything I publish is for the same audience. But again, I have this library of materials that I'm building from, both past and present materials, and then it's just a matter of reassembling these materials in a hearable way. Now, yes, technology changes, so some of these things I need to redo into audio or video format. Some of the things changed, like the reading capacity of the typical audience. I used to be able to get away with 8th grade reading level materials, but now because we have English as second language audience, we have, hello to folks watching in India, hello to folks watching in China, hello to folks watching in Australia and England, and all around the world. The nuances of language are different, so I go for like a 5th grade reading level now, and I get much better engagement. But again, I'm eventually going to get to a point, and this is probably the takeaway, is I'm going to get to the point where my numbering system doesn't work anymore, and that's on purpose. Because if I've got a content topic or content hub, and I've written 999 pieces of content associated with that, I've positioned myself to an audience that I'm a credible expert, and I'm not making enough money to go ahead and just hire staff to keep processing the materials, then I've done something wrong. So really what we're doing here is we're setting up libraries and content so that I can hire copywriters. Like many of you guys on this list, I've hired, and you've gone into my library, and I've handed you a pile of materials, and you've rewritten it, and you've put it on the website. I think the whole email series that we do when people initially opt into the Ad Briefings newsletter, I didn't write it. I wrote the context for that. I wrote the outlines for that, but I hired a copywriter. Now I want you to understand this, folks. What I just described to you is a methodology you can use to help clients optimize their marketing. And then ultimately, rather than building categories, they build campaigns. And those, well, the campaigns are in categories, but basically the campaign is the focal point for their editorial calendar. And then you just help them keep loading topics up. The key is not a lot of topics, it's ones that work. So when I get to 999, I have an idea of what, like I have 999 chances to get the message right. And because I'm regularly producing content, I'm testing that content, I'm using topic testing methods, I can now zero in. And so the closer I get to 999, the better I am as far as matching the audience, the message to market match. So again, there is no limit to the ideas and concepts because as long as I have subscribers and as long as those subscribers interact with the content, I have an understanding of what you're looking for. I can provide those things. All I've got to do is add to that what we have for call to action. Now, I put a generic call to action in everything, which is to ask your questions. Just like I'm going to offer you here right now, that you can ask questions about this. And then a lot of content evolves so that when it's, the 98th revision of something within a certain topic area, it's either the 98th part or it is it's been cultivated. And so an article might be, the same article might be an email, it might also be a video presentation, it might be a podcast, it might be a lot of things. We can get into that in more detail. The key is, again, don't be afraid of content marketing, but don't market content. You're marketing your solutions, your products and services, and you're using content as a delivery vehicle. You're ultimately building your own media, and by building your own media, you end up with a backlog built around a schedule. Now you just produce it. If I sit down an hour a week and I do 2 or 3 videos or 3 videos that are on the same theme, but perhaps for different segments of my audience, I end up with an hour worth of videos that it is a tutorial or my from my desk newsletter. I end up with 3 individual segments that can be used in individual channels. I end up with transcripts of those that can be turned into social media posts, articles, and other things. I have done the work once and profit from it many times. That's really what we're about here. I'm Justin Hitt with Ad Briefings Copywriting Tips, and if you want more insights and tips on the business of copywriting, how to transform your freelance copywriting activities into an agency-level automated system that produces millions of dollars in gross for yourself and even more for your clients. Because again, this method we talked about here can be used with a client where you're getting a retainer and you're managing this for their team, and ultimately huge value. Huge time saving. For as much content as 23,000 articles, those are just articles, podcasts, everything put together. Over 23 years, which is about 1,000 articles a year on a narrow niche of topics for a specific audience. It's actually a lot easier than you might think. Those include notes, by the way, too. So, when I do the research, I keep the notes to reference in the future. But man, sometimes you wonder why you can't shut me up. It's because I put so much into my brain that I'm just here to help you. I'm here to help solve problems. So if this has been useful to you, be sure to like and subscribe. Be sure to join the email newsletter because, like I said, sometimes I'll be on a platform and then I'll get deplatformed or the platform goes away or, something changes. I want to make sure you can get that content. I want to make sure that I can continue to answer your questions. I want to make sure that you get the results that you're looking for because I'm Justin Hitt at Ad Briefings Copywriting Tips. Ask your questions at www.adbriefings.co.uk. And you can also visit adbriefings.com. Doesn't matter to me. I own pretty much every domain associated with this website. Thanks for listening. I'll see you in the next podcast.